It was high noon over Nazi Germany, February 1944, when a lone Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress found itself surrounded. 30 German fighters circled like wolves, their cannons flashing in the thin, icy air. Inside the fortress, 10 young Americans, barely out of their teens, gripped their machine guns, staring death in the face. Their squadron was gone. Their bomber was riddled with holes. Engines were failing. And yet, they refused to surrender. What happened next would become one of the most astonishing acts of defiance in the entire air. War a single bomber that fought 30 fighters alone, earning the nickname the Payback Killer. Number 1. The Fortress and her crew. In World War II, few machines symbolized American air power like the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. Built to take punishment and deliver destruction, it could carry 4,000 pounds of bombs over 2,000 miles, flying through flak and fighters alike. It was the backbone of the U.S. 8th Air Force, the spear tip of daylight bombing over Europe. Each fortress carried 10 men, a pilot and co-pilot. Up front, a navigator and bombardier in the nose, a radio operator amidships, and gunners in the top, belly, waist, and tail. They were young, the average age just 21, and among them was B-17 old 666A bomber that had already survived more missions than anyone thought possible. It flew out of England with scars that told stories, patched, bullet holes, scorched paint, engines that had been replaced and rebuilt more than once. But on that freezing day over Germany, the Fortress and her crew were about to enter the fight of their lives. Number 2. The mission begins. The target that morning was deep inside the Courage, Risha Messerschmitt factory outside Leipzig. It was supposed to be a coordinated strike, hundreds of bombers escorted by long-range P-47 Thunderbolts and P-51 Mustangs, but the weather turned savage. Thick clouds scattered the formation, radio static silenced commands, and one by one, groups of bombers lost contact with the main force. When the sun broke through at 24,000 feet, old 666 was alone. Her escort was gone. The sky around her was empty, except for contrails approaching fast from the east. The navigator looked out and went pale. Bandits, 30 of them. Number 3. The wolves close in. They were Messerschmitt Bf 109S and Focke-Wulf 190s, Germany's most lethal fighters, each bristled with cannons designed to shred bombers apart in seconds. Inside the fortress, adrenaline spiked. The waist gunner slammed ammo belts into place. The tail gunner locked onto the incoming dots. The pilot, Captain J. Red McLaughlin, pushed his throttles forward, trying to climb into thinner air, but the fortress was already heavy and slow from fuel and bomb load. The first pass came head on. Cannon shells ripped across the nose, plexiglass shattered. The bombardier was thrown back bleeding. The intercom crackled, nose gun out, bomb sights gone. Another burst tore through the right wing, punching holes in the fuel tank. Flames flickered, then died as self, sealing rubber did its job. Still, the gunners fired back, 8.50 caliber Brownings spitting hundreds of rounds per minute. Tracer streams arced across the sky, and one of the 109s burst into flame. Splash one fighter, yelled the top turret gunner. But there were 29 more coming. Number 4, a battle in the sky. For the next 20 minutes, the sky became a whirlpool of chaos. The German fighters attacked in waves, from above, from below, from the sides, coordinated with precision honed by years of war. Each pass tore more metal from the fortress. Control cables snapped. The oxygen system was destroyed. The radio operator bled out trying to repair a power line. In the tail, Sergeant William Vaughn fought back even as cannon shells shredded his turret. He stayed until his guns froze solid, refusing to leave his post. "Keep firing," Captain McLaughlin shouted through the smoke. "We're still flying." 2 more 190s went down. One exploded mid-air. Another spiraled into the clouds, trailing black smoke. But now the fortress was limping. One engine was dead, another sputtered. The controls were heavy, and the crew's oxygen masks hung useless. They were gasping for breath at 20,000 feet. They should have turned back. They should have bailed out. But McLaughlin wasn't done yet, he barked. "We came to hit that factory, and that's what we deem gonna do." Number 5, the bomb run. The surviving crew gathered their strength. The bombardier, wounded but conscious, dragged himself back to the nose. Blood ran down his goggles as he lined up the target through cracked glass. "Bombs away," he croaked. The fortress lurched as 4,000 pounds of explosives dropped free. Seconds later, the target below vanished in a boiling fireball. The mission was complete, but now they had to get home. and the Germans weren't letting them go that easily. Number 6. The final stand. As Old 666 turned west toward England, the remaining fighters regrouped for one final attack. They dove from the sun, cannon shells hammering the fuselage. The left wing erupted in flames. Smoke filled the cabin. McLaughlin's co-pilot slumped forward, hit by shrapnel. The captain fought the yoke with one hand while dragging the man back with the other. The top turret gunners' ammo jammed. The waist gunners were down to their last belts. Then came a sound no pilot ever wants to hear. The scream of tearing metal. The number 3 engine tore loose from its mount, spinning away into the void. The Fortress shuddered violently, nearly rolling inverted. "Bail out," someone shouted, but McLaughlin refused. Not yet, not over them. He knew German fighters sometimes shot parachutes. He was going to get his crew as far as possible or die trying. Number 7, the miracle escape. By some miracle, a layer of cloud appeared below. The captain dove into it, throttles forward, the altimeter spinning. When they broke out under the clouds, the fighters were gone. They'd lost them in the haze, but the Fortress was falling apart. The hydraulic system failed, and the control yoke moved like it was set in concrete. They were still 300 miles from friendly territory. They ditched everything that wasn't bolted down: guns, armor plates, ammo boxes, to lighten the load. Slowly, the plane stabilized at 8,000 feet. Hour by hour, the crippled bomber limped west. Smoke trailed behind it like a banner. Inside, it was silent. No one spoke. No one dared. Finally, as the North Sea came into view, McLaughlin keyed his radio. "Mayday, Mayday." Fortress returning from Leipzig were hit bad. A British radar station picked up the signal. Spitfires scrambled to escort them in. When Old 666 finally crossed the coast of England, thousands of people came out to watch. Her fuselage looked like Swiss cheese. More than 700 holes were counted later. The tail was nearly torn off. One wing was cracked clear through, and yet she landed. A smoking, limping, broken bird that refused to die. Number 8. After the mission, when the crew stepped off the aircraft, they were exhausted, shaken, and streaked with oil and smoke. One by one, they went to the medical bay. Some could barely hear after the long journey. Others showed signs of fatigue from the demanding flight, but all 10 had made it home. Within a week, maintenance teams released photographs of the vehicle. Technicians could hardly believe what they saw. A machine so worn and damaged it seemed impossible that it had remained in the air. Reporters soon gave it a nickname, the Flying Ghost. Others preferred the Payback Legend. During that remarkable mission, the crew had managed to overcome at least 8 aerial challenges, possibly more, setting a record for endurance and teamwork seldom matched in the history of aviation. Number 9. The Legacy of the Flying Fortress. The story of Old 666 became legend among bomber crews. It represented everything the B-17 was built for: endurance, courage, and the will to fight when all odds were lost. The aircraft's designers at Boeing had given it thick armor, self-sealing tanks, and redundant systems, but no one had imagined it would take this kind of punishment and still fly home. The mission highlighted something deeper too: the courage of ordinary men in extraordinary circumstances. In the freezing sky over Europe, 10 young Americans had faced 30 German fighters and won. Not because their aircraft was invincible, but because they refused to give up. Number 10, the bigger picture. The air war over Europe was brutal beyond imagination. Between 1942 and 1945, more than 47,000 American bomber crewmen were killed, more than the entire U.S. Marine Corps lost in the Pacific. Every mission was a gamble. Every return was a victory. The Germans called the P-17 Viermotoriger Teufel IV, Engine Devil, because even when shot to pieces, it wouldn't die, and that reputation mattered. It kept morale alive. It reminded Allied crews that courage could outlast fear, and sometimes even bullets. Number 11, the human cost. For Captain McLaughlin and his crew, the war didn't end there. They flew again, repaired, rearmed, and ready, but none ever forgot that day over Leipzig. In later interviews, McLaughlin said quietly, "When you're up there, it's not about medals or glory. It's about the man next to you. You fight for him. That's what keeps you alive." Several of his crewmen were awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. Others received the Silver Star. But the greatest honor came years later, when their story was told in pilot schools around the world as a lesson in leadership, discipline, and courage under fire. Number 12, closing reflection. Pablo Contri, de Public de Quets. Today, only a handful of B-17 still fly, restored by volunteers, their engines echoing across airshows like ghosts from another age. When you see one rumbling across the sky, look closely at its scars, its rivets, its gun ports. Each of those tells a story of men who stared down death and refused to blink. The story of the Payback Killer isn't just about a plane or a battle. It's about what happens when courage meets chaos, when humans, fragile and afraid, become something greater through sheer will. The the 17th of May have been built from aluminum and steel, but what truly made it indestructible was the spirit of the men inside. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but never outmatched. And when the smoke cleared, one battered fortress limped home, victorious, carrying not just her crew, but the legend of every bomber that fought for freedom in the skies above Europe.